Welcome, welcome to another episode of Creating Lasting Change. I am Trisha Dyka, and I am really excited today to be here with Kirsten Eventier. And we are going to be talking about self-trust in the GPS of the soul. And I think this seems to be a theme this season. So much about intuition and trusting ourselves and listening to our bodies,
Mm.
because I think we get so caught up in the day to day and hustle and bustle that we do not stop and actually center and balance and ground our energy so that we understand what is going on. So let me introduce her, and we are going to jump into this topic because I am very excited about it. All right, let me quickly. Kirsten Eventier is a seasoned practitioner of the healing arts who has spent over 30 years relishing the magic of human transformation. Her lifelong deep dive into embodied energetics, vibrational medicines, authentic movement, five-element ritual, and indigenous wisdom gives her a bone-deep experiential understanding of what she teaches and offers. She is also the chief medicine maker at Light Blossoms, where she makes flower essence and essential oil sprays to support personal transformation. And she also has a collection of poetry coming out, Calamity's Compass, Poems for Finding Your Way. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm
So
so
glad to
excited
be
to have you here today and to really delve into this. I think it's so important um, to talk about our soul GPS. So please share a little bit about it. Let's dive right in.
excellent. Well, one of the things that I thought of is so much of the time, like you said, we get so caught up in the outer world. It's so compelling. There's so much content and information. And not only that, but we also get caught up in the cultural stories, the sort of modern day era kind of orientation to life. And I like to pan way back from that and to kind of think about myself as an organic creature, right? Like I'm a creature who developed into my creature of Kirsten, just like the cedar tree develops into its cedar treeness, or a fox develops into its foxness. And because of that, I think there is an organic intelligence in what created a cedar tree to be itself, what created a trout or a fox to be itself. It is the same for me. There is nothing different about me than any other natural creature that has come into itself over time. And because of that, I really believe that what we are wired with, what we come here onto the planet with, is trustworthy. That our body is designed to give us physical signals, emotional signals, energetic signals to guide us along our journey. So that's sort of the broad vision of why I think everyone, no matter how untrustworthy they feel, like we've all made terrible choices in our lives. And so it's, it sort of feels like, we're all making mistakes all the time because we're all learning. We're all in a constant process of growth and learning, which means that we're always making mistakes. And then it feels like maybe I'm not so trustworthy. But I really do believe at the fundamental level, we are absolutely trustworthy, and that our mistakes don't prove any different, that mistakes are just part of the learning process. We if we decide to play the piano, it means we're going to play the piano badly for a long time. And
Mhm.
even if we become extremely skilled and masterful at playing the piano, we will still hit wrong notes as we continue to refine this experience of being human. It's so yeah, that's my first sort of, there you are. That's why I believe the
Well,
way I believe.
you know, for me, an experience is something that yes, I want to continue it, or nope. We're going to do something else because this is not fun. This is not what I thought it was. But I think experiences mold who we are without letting it define who we are,
Mhm.
because I think that's so important. I think people take an experience and next thing you know, they're taking it into themselves as the beliefs or as their internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Right. Or proof that we're somehow doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that sometimes we misperceive uncomfortable feelings as
Mhm.
being proof that somehow something's wrong with us, when really it's just signaling like this isn't actually right for you, or you need to maybe course correct a little bit, or this that you don't actually ever really feel very safe with this person. Even though you want it to be good, it's not actually safe for you. So you need to reestablish your boundaries. I think that's another one that I think is so helpful is there's a lot of talk about boundaries in life and how we hold on to ourself. And I worked with an African teacher, Malidoma Some, for a long time, and in their culture, they don't have a word for protection. Their language, it doesn't even exist as a concept, which just blew my mind. I'm like, how can an entire culture not even have an understanding about protection when it seems like in modern times we seem so much in need, of how do we hold an edge with ourselves. And part of, his orientation was that sort of everything is of God, so to speak. Everything is spirit, and there's nothing to protect against, but we do want to orient, we do want to not get thrown off. We want to orient in a particular direction. We want to follow that GPS of the soul. And part of that is about creating edges around what works for us and what doesn't. And some of the most important signals that a boundary is needed is anger. And I think this is so helpful for women in particular because the story is so much like we don't want to be mean, we don't want to be bad, we don't want to be bitchy, we don't want to be harsh or strident, we're not supposed to be mad. But anger's job is to protect the integrity of our core. And so whenever anger, irritation, frustration comes up, it's really an invitation to go, well, what needs to be protected in myself? Or what kind of boundary needs to be restored for me? So I really like to look at feelings as a guide also for what our soul is trying to direct us towards. Anger wants us to create a boundary. Sadness wants us to let go of something. Anxiety and fear wants us to pay attention to something. Like those are really important signals that we don't want to make ourselves wrong for feeling those difficult feelings. We want to honor those difficult feelings and let them take us where we need to go.
I want to add one. First off, I'm loving this conversation.
Oh,
I
good.
want to add one. Well, along with anger is resentment.
Hmm.
That's saying yes and you resent yourself for doing it. That is like a big neon sign saying we need a boundary. We need a boundary. Something has to change here. But I really want to delve a little bit into resistance because there's so much out there about resistance. And for me, and I would love your feedback, resistance for me, if it's in my body, is telling me, no, no, do not, absolutely not, this is not your path. However, if I have resistance and then I hear the commentary in my head, for me, that is telling me I have to push past this because I am attempting not to do this thing. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's such a tricky one because really, there are ways in which we can resist that are very healthy for us, right?
Mm,
And
yeah,
then there are ways that we can resist in a way that is habitual or because of our wounds, or ways we've been hurt or whatever. And so being able to kind of sense the difference between, is this resistance really settled in like, this just doesn't feel right for me? Or is it settled in, oh no, what if? Right? Because oh no, what if is usually a signal that that's more on a mental level. It's that sort of it's moved us into a mental level processing of like it could be, but it also could be great. Like, it could go either way. The part that's hard is we have this negativity bias in the brain that tends to lean us towards, uh-oh, what if? just for all of us, like that's just hardwired in. And so partly I think it's also in some ways questioning the oh no, what if? And just going, well, is that likely? Are there other likely positive possibilities? But to not push ourselves past a very steady, like, I don't think that feels right. I think it's also important to know your own inclinations. Like, I know for myself, my inclination is to do too much. Like, that's just, I have a Sagittarius rising. I'm like, oh, let's do all the things. And then I end up really overwhelmed and like I've got too much going on in my life. And I want to clone myself because I still want to do it all, but I don't have enough of me. As I've gotten older, I'll recognize the urge to do something and go, hold on a minute. Is that really aligned with what I really want to serve in my heart and soul? Is that really what I want to create for myself? It's interesting, it's fun, it might be cool, but is it really in alignment? And that requires a certain capacity to be pretty sober with yourself, to really, like you said, about groundedness, about really dropping in and staying steady with oneself. The two things that I really do to discern, one is I hold that I want the truth more than I want anything else. That I really like align myself with that. And for me, it feels like I'm reaching into my crown and I'm pulling it in. I want the truth more than I want anything else in this regard. And then I'm also dropping into my tailbone. So I'm going into my sort of cosmic source and I'm going into my earth source. I want that tailbone stability of like, okay, what's happening in the body? I want the truth and I want to listen to the body as the oracle, as the source of all the information that I need. And then I'm really sort of welcoming whatever comes. I'm really listening for whatever comes. And for me, it's often a lifting and expansion if it's like, yeah, head that way, or it's a sinking and contraction if it's like, nah, that's not right. Over the years of teaching this, different people have different signals than what I have. Some people have more of a stability, they feel more stable when it's a yes and more sort of flighty if it's a no. Some people get a green light and a red light. Like people have different ways of doing it. So finding your way is really the best way.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I'm glad that you noted that, because I think, like for me, when I know I have this immense peace throughout my whole body, it's like, yep, this is it. This is the way I'm supposed to go. It still can be scary. I
Sure.
still can be afraid of it,
Sure.
but that level of peace that's throughout my body is insane. And when I decide to let something go, it's like a boulder has just dropped off my shoulder. I'm like, oh, thank you, God. You know, even if it is something that we think we need to hold on to and push, when we finally sit down and connect to that place within us and say, is this really the path? Is this really for me? Am I really in alignment for it? And I'm loving these questions that you're asking. I want people to take note of these questions, whether you like them, you want to reframe them, but it really comes down to, am I in alignment with the life that I want to live? Am I in alignment with the results that I desire from my life?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the answer may not be what we want, but that is the way forward. Like
Yeah.
I recently, back in January, had a huge um pivot, a huge understanding, and I'm like, and I remember feeling such immense peace and going, all right, I may not understand this, I may not grasp the whole thing, but I know this is my path.
Mm-hmm.
So it is such it is such a level of understanding that each of us are required to do. Now, do you have anything to have people? Because, like, we all know, I've done it myself. It's like I'm running late in the morning. I've got an appointment. I've got this. And next thing I know, it's 6 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm exhausted. So, and I absolutely do my best to make sure that I am grounded and have my rituals and do my things in the morning, because that for me is very big to set the tone of the day.
Mhm,
Do
mhm.
you have things or recommend things to set the tone of the day, to have people, even if they're out and about and rushing, to drop into their bodies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing that's really important is that it doesn't require a 45-minute meditation every day. I mean, that's a whole other level, and that is absolutely useful, very, very helpful. And I try to meditate every day if I can. But really taking 1 minute to just pause. You can be in the bathroom, you can be at lunch, you can be at a stoplight, to just pause and go, how am I doing?
Mm.
What's happening inside of me? Some of the questions I've asked over time are like that one, how am I doing? Another one I ask is like, am I in my truth right now? I kind of drop into my belly and like, am I really living my truth right now? And I'll have a very distinct sense of it.
Mhm.
Another one that I'll ask is like, are my needs met right now? Or what am I longing for? That's another one. So all those questions, if you give those questions, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a whole minute. It really can be like 30 seconds. And it can be, I drop in and I go, oh, I'm thirsty. Or I drop in and I go, oh, I am agitated. I don't really have time to be with this, but I'm going to take note of it. And the next time I have a little stretch, I can see it coming in my day. I'm going to drop in and feel what this agitation is. Or I might keep driving and go, what is that agitation? And while I'm driving, thinking about it and going, I think it's connected to this decision I just made, or, the fact that I packed things in too much or whatever. But I think being willing to give yourself the little mini check-in is huge. And there are times where I'll check in and I'll go like, gosh, I'm longing for spaciousness.
Mm.
I don't really have spaciousness coming up for a while. But what I could do is I can find a photo that represents spaciousness for me online, and I can just sit with that picture for a minute. Like, oh, there is that spaciousness for me. I'm going to give it to myself, even though I can't create it in a different way. I can create it in this little way, you know? So it's learning how to be really creative of how to fit it in, but really even more than that, it's how do you make a commitment to making things good for yourself?
Mm.
I mean, that's at the core of it. Am I really willing to do the things that I need to do to make my life right for me to feel good in my own skin, for me to feel like I like who I'm being in my life? Like letting that absolutely be a priority. And I think that can be scary for people, especially when there's a way in which they recognize that they are off kilter, and changing that is going to be really scary, whether it's in work or relationship or family or whatever. But I want to remind people that even if that feels scary, that it doesn't mean you have to upend your entire life necessarily. Like it really can be like, oh, I don't see myself leaving this relationship, and yet I know I can sense in myself there's something off about it. Well, that's okay. Stay in the relationship and keep the inquiry going about what's off about it. And it might be that something can change. It might be that oh, I just need to ask for this thing. Maybe they can do it. But it really is about coming back over and over again to being really true to ourselves and what we came here to do. Because this is a miracle. I mean, the fact that I get to be Kirsten for like, I don't know, 54 years so far, who knows how much I've got. Like, there will never be another me. I never get to do this again. This is it. And so I want to make it as true to what this organism, this uniqueness is, so that I can really do it justice, which is not like in a hyper masculine, I have to do everything. It's
Mm.
really about dropping into what's true for me. What do I love? What do I value? What makes me feel alive? What fills me with peace and goodness? Like, and I really want everybody to ask that question for themselves, because I think our world would all be so much better if we were all living more deeply into our fulfillment.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like there's so many questions that were coming up, while you were having this this segment. One of the things that I do, first off, I love the fact that your tools are quick and easy, because I think when you have quick and easy, people tend to utilize them more, because it's not that 45-minute or even that 35-minute. It's, I can do it while I'm driving. I can do it while I run to the bathroom. I can do it while, I'm putting away dishes or whatever. Again, it's that being able to incorporate it in easy ways. And one of the things that's worked really well for me is I put it in my phone. Like, I
Uh-huh.
have my phone go off
Yes.
asking me questions. What am I
Beautiful.
thinking? What's going on for me? Where are you at? How are you investing in yourself? Like, all of these questions throughout the day just come up randomly. And I'm like, oh, and it makes me stop and sit and think. And it doesn't have to be a long time. It could be,
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because that's the thing. We don't tend to just remember to do it if we don't have a signal. Like, I don't remember to do anything unless I have a signal. And whether it's like a rock in my pocket or I put a piece of jewelry on I don't normally wear or I set an alarm on my phone, if I don't get it from the outside, I'll just plow on. I really need something to signal me or I will miss it.
yeah. And that's important. I think, doing that for ourselves, whether it's post-it notes around your house or
Yes,
here,
yes.
you have to see post-it notes. They're
I know I was
everywhere.
gonna say I'm looking at mine right here too.
I've got quite a few post-it notes in front of me right now.
Mhm.
And it's reminding me of things that I want. It's asking myself questions. And
Mhm.
it's important to do that because if not, we tend to not pay attention to ourselves and the things that we truly desire in the path that we want to be on because we're pushing it down,
Mhm.
rushing around, or trying to prove society's beliefs or what we have to be doing. So, yes, it's super
Yes.
important.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, one of the other ones that I like is, and I'm doing a wee bit of self-promotion, is the flower essence sprays. One of the things that I love is like there's one that's called Healthy Boundaries. And so if I know that that's an issue I'm working on, I can have it on the counter, or if it's self-love, I can have it on the counter. I can grab it as a way of remembering to anchor that in myself. And I've got a little energetic support to do it too. Or I'll keep clearing space in my car to clear my energy after I've gone to Costco or something. So having little rituals like that too, like, I did one for a while where before I came in the house, I would just put my hand on a rock by my house. And it was just a way of sort of regrounding myself, setting things down before I came in, to just be fresh for my family.
Yeah, and that's important. These are little tiny things that can be incorporated because I find that if we don't understand what our body is trying to tell us, what our intuition or the God within is trying to tell us, we tend to just go about without ever paying any mind. And it's really important to have that conversation, to have that spaciousness, to create it for ourselves, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is that we can do. Because, you know, otherwise, if we continue to ignore ourselves, what have you noticed that happens?
Oh, right, yeah. Well, if we ignore ourselves, we don't feel good, I mean, everything kind of starts to get more entrenched. We feel less alive. We feel more burdened and martyred, and like our life is like not something we're joyously living, but something that's on our back. Um, and I get it, capitalism's hard and there's a lot of things that make it difficult to not feel burdened by the world in general. But I think that's even more the reason why we need to tap into what are the unique things that fill us with satisfaction and joy. We have to be engaged with beauty and goodness, or we can't make it well in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that because those are like triggers. So if you're not feeling right about your life, if you find that you are blah, if you find you're just going through the motions, if you find this apathy that you have, that is a trigger, a signal saying it's time to regroup and figure out what your body, what your intuition is telling you. That's important.
Absolutely. And the other one I'll add to that is feeling bad about yourself.
Mm, yes.
That there is like an epidemic of feeling bad about ourselves. And I really think that so much of it is because we're just not in alignment with with ourselves, that we're either over identified with the outer world or with our own wounds. And that it's just there's just some subtle readjustments that can get us back into, oh, it's good to be me. I can just relax into being myself and move forward in a way that really serves me.
Yeah. I'm glad that you pointed that out because it's these things that we feel, that we're sensing, that it's time for us to readjust, just realign to what is the path, the momentum that we have to move forward. I think it's
Hmm.
important.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. Now, here's another question for you. So, um, if this is, you're saying that this is the GPS of our soul. So our soul is um giving direction to our bodies, correct?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I really believe that that our our emotions are like the ambassador of the soul.
Mm.
You know, our illnesses, our pains, like those are all ambassadors from the soul. They are trying to take us somewhere, somewhere that will bring us more aliveness, more alignment, more well-being. And part of it is, and this is so hard, but to deeply trust whatever's arising, to deeply trust the discomfort, to deeply trust our pain, to deeply trust our uncomfortable feelings, that they are always trying to take us somewhere we actually need to go. It's just about like, and I think practice makes it happen. Like I was thinking about you talking about how you like, how have you learned to trust yourself? Like, how did that happen that you could make that decision in January?
Oh, that was that's having the connection to my body. That is having the connection to, the source within, the God within, as I call it, my higher self.
Yeah.
It was just, I remember it clear as day. I asked a ton of what questions. I tend to stay away from why, unless, of course, is why is the universe expanding? But when it comes to why questions to me, I tend to stay away because I find that that can send you down a victimhood rabbit hole. And I like what questions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
That's great.
asking a bunch of what questions. What do I have to change? What direction do I need to go in? And I remember it was just like one after the other. And I went about my merry way for the day. And it was just answer after answer after answer. And the thing that told me I wasn't on the right path was my level of frustration.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
My level of frustration. It was in my body, and I'm like, I'm frustrated. And as soon as I made that decision, that frustration went away.
Mm. Ah, lovely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you have some experience being aligned with that sort of spiritual base within yourself. Like you've practiced it some.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think sometimes you just sort of try, you lean into it in small ways and trust and hope and see what happens. Like I like to look at it, especially when people are really not quite sure, or they feel like they have a lot to lose, or it's maybe just too weird or too woo woo or something. It's like, just try it as an experiment. Just give it a day of just leaning towards what your longing is, or, leaning into listening to what's happening in you. Just see what happens, see what you learn. Sometimes those experiments are like, oh, I've tried it one day and I am never going back. Like that works so good. Like I'm just going to continue that forever now.
Yes, yes. But sometimes it is, and for in my case, I was holding on to something that I was still trying to make work.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I'm holding on to, I got this, I got this. And as soon as I dropped that boulder, it was like everything just fell right into place. So
Whew.
we can, in our heads, tell ourselves, I can't release it because of A, B, C, D. I've spent too much time doing it. I put too much money into doing it.
That- that's-
I don't know. I'm sure there's so many other,
Those are big ones though, those two. Too much
yes,
money, too much time, too much money into it. I can't let it go now. Yeah.
yes, yes. And it was just the best thing I ever did. I let it
Mm,
go.
Congratulations. Wow.
But yes, it is absolutely a matter of trusting myself. It is a matter of trusting the universe. It is a matter of, and that's a muscle. Like all of it is a muscle.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. And that's, I think, the thing of when it is like that putting your reps in, which is just like practicing trusting in small ways. Like, what's it like if I go into the grocery store and I just hold an attitude of, I wonder if my needs could really be met in the grocery store. Like, I wonder if I could just really feel like life is helping me at the grocery store and just see what happens when you open to that possibility and lean in and learn, just it's like information gathering. Just keep trying it. See what happens.
I'm really loving the questions that you are posing. I really want people to take note of them because they're simple. They're simple questions. Like it's so easy, and with everything that we do, it's listen, I love the results I get from exercise. I can't stand exercising.
Uh-huh.
However, I I will continue to exercise because I like how I feel afterwards.
That's it.
I'm just everything is so clear. That is a muscle.
Absolutely.
Anytime that I don't want to do it, I step back and say, whose path am I following?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like these questions are so imperative. Am I in alignment with that best version of myself?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And simple. It's easy. And then it's just a muscle that all we have to do is try it again. Try it again. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, listen, we don't want, I'm sure there's people out there who don't like doing their dishes and doing laundry, but we want clean dishes and we want clean laundry.
That's
So,
right. We do.
so
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's just simple asking questions. And I'm going to go back to the one about alignment that you asked previously. Am I in alignment with my highest self? Am I in alignment with the person I want to become? Am I becoming that person? You know, I,
And part of that is also the self-inquiry of what does that look like?
hmm,
Like, like when have I ever felt an alignment in my life? When have I felt the most aliveness or the most like me or the most well utilized for my gifts? Like when have I felt that in my life? And letting some of those questions also guide us to like, what is it that I really want out of this experience of being human? Because there's a bajillion things you can want out of being human, but they're not necessarily all what I'm about. And so also like I'm such a fan of give yourself a 5 hour retreat, or a whole day retreat if you can, but just give yourself 3 to 5 hours of just sitting with those kinds of things. Like, what do I really love? What really matters to me? What brings me satisfaction and fulfillment and joy? What makes me feel embodied? Just asking these questions as a way of honing in on what do I really value? What's really right for me? What did I come here to be about? And then once you have that, then you can just keep coming back to it. Is this lining up with that? Is it lining up with that? Over and over again. And you can feel when it lines up and when it doesn't.
yeah, our bodies are absolutely a tool for us to have conversations with and a tool that will direct us on the path. I really believe that.
Hmm.
So it is about that time. I would love for you to share where people can reach out to you if they would like to, speak to you further about this.
Yeah, yeah. My website is kirsteneventier.com. Now that's a tricky name. So it's KIRSTINEVENTYR .com. You can also find me at lightblossoms.com. And yeah, both of those places are great places to reach me.
All right. And they'll also be underneath this video. So you can just, click to her website or her light blossoms, light blossoms,
Light blossoms,
light
yes.
blossoms. Thank you so much for joining me today, Kirsten, and I hope everybody has an amazing day and enjoy the rest of your evening all.
Awesome. Thank you, Trisha.